most people when they're enrolling somebody, be it working with somebody to get them to change, maybe step through their fear, or if you're in sales and you're trying to get them to solve a challenge, you're helping support them solve a challenge, or take their business or their life to the next level. Whether you're a parent trying to get their child to do something, brush their teeth, something like that, there's really four beliefs that you have to create any change. And if these four beliefs aren't met, then what ends up happening is the client will then back off. Most people make the projection that it's about I didn't do something right. These people aren't ready, whatever the case may be. But the reality is once these four beliefs are locked into play, then it becomes much more easier for you to get your client to change. So the first belief that your client has to have is that it's worth it. If the problem is when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, people tend to change. The other thing is when the solution becomes greater than the pain could ever be, or when the solution becomes greater than the problem could ever be, people tend to change. And what that really boils down to is it's worth it. This sucks, this is better. If your client doesn't believe that the change itself is worth it, then there's nothing you're going to be able to do, or nothing you're going to be able to say. Your product will never be the product that they're looking for, because in their mind it's really not worth it for me to move from here to there anyways. And there's two reasons. One, it's easier to deal with the demon that we know than to raise the demon that we don't. And if you're wanting the client to move into a space where they feel like the pain over here is either scarier, they're imagining the pain of moving over being more difficult, then they'll never make that transition. And then the other thing is that you have to understand that there are these people that are at this stage where they're gaining their significance from the problem itself. Remember, we talked about the 7 basic human needs. And so if the person is gaining significance from the problem and their number one basic human need is for significance, you're going to have to find a way to shift their belief system over so the significance becomes overcoming the challenge, not so much living with the challenge, because you'll never get them to move over. The second thing that they need to know is that they can do it. I worked under Tony Robbins in his business mastery department for over a decade. And really in that time, I can tell you that his belief was one of the, this belief was probably one of the biggest killers to business owners. They just doubted that they could successfully change the business. At some level, when I was interviewing them, I could see that it was like, well, I'll not be able to do what Tony did. He's 6 foot 9 or however tall he is, and 6'11". The guy's almost 20 foot tall, right? And he appears to be 20 foot tall, and he owns 63 businesses, 6 billion annual revenue. So it's like, well, yeah, that guy got there, but I can't get the results that he had. They didn't. It's not that they didn't doubt our product, but for some reason they just wouldn't shift. And what I found in the core of many of these leaders was that they didn't have the faith in themselves. I mean, they would believe in the product, they would believe in Tony, they would believe in all this, but they would believe that I'm not good enough, I can't do this. And remember, we all have two fears: one, that we're not good enough, and two, that you're not going to love me. And so you've got to get the client to the belief system. They have to be able to envision that they can. There has to be a belief system that, you know what, it's worth it and I can do this. Your client won't ever act on a belief that it's possible for them to be successful. And sitting in a story they might not be good enough is a better feeling for some than finding out that they aren't. In other words, it's better for me to think that I might not be good enough than to actually take this product on, engage this product, and then find out without a shadow's doubt that no, you aren't good enough. You got to be able to shift the belief that I can't so that they can get to I can. And if you can't get to I can, you're never going to get to I must. This is where working in the narrative comes in handy, asking them to tell you a storyline when they struggle to make a decision. And tell me of a time when you had to risk failure and were successful. Tell me a time when you overcame when you thought it was impossible. They all have these hero's journey. Remember, we talked about the framework of story. They all have we all have these stories in us loaded where one minute we didn't think we could, and then we overcame some obstacle and we did. This loads the narrative and that loads the story in the narrative level so that they can see that they're able to overcome, so that they can see that there are many times that this belief I can't is untrue, and you start to sweep the legs. And they remember when times that they overcame something that seemed impossible, that impossible task. And now all of a sudden, this implausibility, this impossibility becomes a possibility, becomes plausible, because they can see that this lie that they've told themselves over and over and over wasn't true back there, so it very well may be true right here. The third thing that they have to buy into, the third belief that they have to have, is that this is the right product, or this is the way. No, I'm not talking about the last Mandalorian episode, right? I'm referring to the belief that your way is the right way, that your product is what they need. A client that doesn't believe in your product, service, or direction is never going to act. Why would they? They're unsure about whether this is that, or this is that product, or this is the right product for them. And so when you look at the stages of change, this ties right into, at the narrative level, what stage of change is this person in? Because if they're in a stage where they are in preparation mode, they think they know what the problem is. They think they know what the possible solutions are. So your job then is to lock into that stage with them. If they're in the first stage, and just in trying to figure out what the problem is, and you start talking about a solution, they haven't even fully vested in the problem itself. They haven't wrapped their mind. Remember, people will not fully appreciate your solution until they fully understand or fully grasp the problem. And so your first step there is to get them to grasp the problem, and then to develop resonance so that you're speaking with them in a way that makes sense for them. Uh, Again, you have to get to the point to where the client believes that your product is the most ideal product. The question you have to ask yourself is, what does my product or solution have to look like for my ideal client to think I'd have to be stupid to not use this product? Or if you're trying to get somebody to change, you have to show them the path. You have to be able to envision for them, see yourself in this product. What would be the challenges? What would be the opportunities? A lot of times when you're doing some work with somebody, you'll show them the vision of what will happen if they don't succeed, or what will happen if they have your products. Imagine if, what's it going to look like, and all that. And you don't give them the view of the challenges, and that's in their mind. As a matter of fact, maybe holding more space than the vision of success is the vision of how it'll all fail. And so getting them to lock down and able to see overcoming those challenges is an extremely important task. And then the final thing is, now is the time. Again, we have to reach this point to where they understand they're stepping through this threshold, and now is the time to act. And many people will hold off on a pain thinking, I'll deal with it tomorrow, I'll deal with it tomorrow, I'll deal with it tomorrow, because they don't want to invest resources that they might need to solve the problem. It reminds me of the story of Pinocchio, when Geppetto is he's inside the whale, and Pinocchio shows up, and first he thinks Pinocchio is a fish, so he's trying to eat him because he's hungry, right? I just need resources, I just need that. And then Pinocchio tries to take the wood and take all the furniture, and he wants to break up all the furniture, create a fire, and that fire is going to shoot him and Geppetto out of this whale. And Geppetto freaks out because he's like, well, if we don't have any furniture, where are we going to sit? What are we going to do? And Pinocchio's like, but if we're free, we don't need this furniture. But Geppetto is so hooked on the problem, and not knowing if now is the time to fully invest, now is the time to fully engage, that he's resistant to let Pinocchio burn all the furniture. And really, many times, this is where you find your customer, your client, the person you're guiding. This is where you find them, is that they don't want to get rid of the resource. They don't want to take the resources that they need to break through the problem, because most people spend their life managing circumstances. They're just trying to manage they're not building the ideal, so they can't see it's going to take this to get there, and I'm going to have to give up what I'm using to survive to use it to break through. And so you've got to help your client walk through that threshold. And really, this is the mistake most people make, is they don't help their client break through that threshold, so they know to make the investment in themselves in a way that's functional and by design, and not by default. In other words, most people are living by default, not by design. And so what are you doing to meet these four beliefs that your client has to change to be able to walk through any change model? You have to be able to nail down each one of them 4 beliefs. Otherwise, your customer won't act. Your customer will be unsure. The customer will, for whatever reason, find either a logical or even an illogical and emotional response that will keep them from acting, keep them from changing.